Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees. Here are today's top stories. France has pulled out of a defence talk with the UK as a fallout from Australia's move to cancel a lucrative submarine contract with the country continues. Energy suppliers request emergency support from the government to deal with the current energy crisis. And one of England's most prolific strikers, Jimmy Greaves, has died at the age of 81. France cancels a meeting between its Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly and her British counterpart, Ben Wallace, which was planned for this week. This comes after the recalling of France's ambassadors to the US and Australia. Here's NTD's Eddie Aitken with more on this.
French Armed Forces Minister Florence Parly has postponed a meeting with the UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace this week. France was left fuming after the UK, the US and Australia agreed a new pact called Aukus, and Australia cancelled a £27 billion submarine contract with the country. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says France has nothing to worry about from the deal as he arrives in New York for the United Nations General Assembly.
I think that the Aukus deal that we've done with our Australian friends and our American friends is it's not exclusionary or adversarial towards anybody, whether any partner, friend or partner around the world.
The Prime Minister says the UK and France stand shoulder to shoulder in many important ways.
People don't realise this, but there is one country with which we already have a nuclear agreement to share nuclear testing, and that is actually France.
France recalled its ambassadors to the US and Australia on Saturday. President Macron will speak with President Biden in the coming days. Its ambassador to the US, Philippe Etienne, says he met with President Macron over the weekend.
J'ai été rappelé pour consultation, c'est un peu le sens.
I've been recalled for consultations. That's the meaning of this procedure, which is uncommon, and that marks the seriousness of our reaction and of this moment in our relations with the United States.
Avec les États-Unis.
The former French ambassador to the US tells Sky News that selling submarines to Australia was more than just a business deal.
Providing 12 submarines to Australia was for us a strategic choice. We wanted to build a strategic partnership which would be the pillar of our Indo-Pacific strategy.
He says France did not know the US and Australia had been planning the deal for months. He denounced what he suggested was a backroom deal that betrayed France.
We are allies, it's not a way of treating allies.
But former US Defence Secretary Leon Panetta hails the deal. He says the most important thing that needs to be done in dealing with China is to strengthen alliances.
I think what that does is it sends a message to China that we are not going to simply sit back and allow China to have its way in the Pacific.
Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says Australia raised the issue about the submarines with France months ago. He says the capability of the submarines ordered from France was not enough to protect Australia's sovereign interests.
I'm sure people would understand that Australia's national interest comes first. It must come first, and it did come first. And Australia's interests are best served by the trilateral partnership that I've been able to form with President Biden and Prime Minister Johnson.
Morrison says he is disappointed France recalled its ambassador, but says he understands and respects the decision.
I don't regret the decision to put Australia's national interests first. Never will.
The UK and the US will help Australia develop at least 8 nuclear-powered submarines. This pact is widely regarded as an effort to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Energy suppliers are requesting an emergency support package from the government to help survive the energy crisis. Last month, 5 suppliers went bust, and prices have continued to rise since then. NTD's Patrick Hayden brings us the latest.
The UK's largest energy suppliers are asking the government for a multi-billion-pound emergency support package. That's to tackle soaring gas prices as energy suppliers become non-profitable.
you're seeing big spikes in gas prices.
Industry group Oil and Gas UK says wholesale prices for suppliers increased by 250% since January, with a 70% rise since August. Some businesses, like chemical factories, have had to close because of the high prices of gas. Gas suppliers are proposing that the government create a bad bank to take on customers from failed suppliers. It could help avoid weakening companies that are otherwise strong.
So the idea of a bad loans bank or something similar to that does make sense.
UK Business and Energy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng will meet with energy suppliers Monday to discuss potential solutions.
The UK's got a pretty high reliance on gas. There's been quite a lot of switching away from coal in the UK. Again, UK was one of the first places to put a carbon tax in place.
Half of the UK's electricity is generated from gas-fired plants, and it has a regulator that caps consumer prices.
Well, I don't think gas prices should be regulated.
5 energy suppliers have collapsed since the start of August, and another 4 are expected to go under before the end of the month.
And is that there's the energy price cap that's imposed by the government, by the regulator, which doesn't move as fast as gas prices and energy prices have moved up. So yes, ultimately you could see you will see prices move up. You will see the end the customers having to foot the bill, but that could be a year or so away.
The Financial Times reports that further failings could mean that as many as 1 million customers may have to transfer to new energy providers. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Tottenham hosted Chelsea on Sunday in what was billed as the world's first net zero carbon football match. Attendees were encouraged to travel on public transport or bicycle and to eat plant-based foods. NTD's Jen Worrell brings us this report.
A goal for this match was to be net zero, not zero goals, but zero carbon emissions. This included players drinking water in cartons and fans encouraged to cycle or use the train with plant-based food options available. But it's not for everyone, and some weren't aware of the campaign.
How did you travel here?
With the car, 2.5 hour journey. I don't really eat and stay here. I can't afford their prices. I want to encourage people to eat those sort of foods, maybe. It's good, I don't know, it's not for me.
Regardless of whether fans were on board, questions remain over whether these net zero campaigns are successful.
In some sense, this trivializes the climate challenge because it makes it about, oh, let's go to a football game that's net zero and then we're fine. No, we're not at all. What you need to do to go net zero is much more than that and much costlier and much harder to do.
Is this kind of net zero also the way to go forward at all? What are your thoughts on that?
So people tell us we should go net zero, but of course the reality is that's unlikely to happen in a policy-wise because it's too expensive, but it also is not the right way to try to fix climate change because making too grand promises means that eventually all politicians will have to backtrack. Remember, prices on electricity is going up all around Europe right now, mostly because of a gas crisis. But what it does is it shows you that most electorates are not willing to have very high energy prices.
The match was supported by the UK government as hosts of the Climate Summit this November. The government has committed to legislate for net zero carbon emissions by 2050. In his visit to the UN this week, Boris Johnson is asking world leaders to commit to climate challenges.
It's only a couple of months now till the COP26 summit, and so we need everybody to focus on what's called their nationally determined contributions. That's the amount of carbon dioxide each country is going to cut. The UK is way out in front, or is doing very well. We've made a big pledge. We've already greatly reduced our CO2.
We asked Tottenham if statistics were available about the reduction of emissions from the match, but they didn't respond in time. Jane Warrell, NTD News, London.
About 5,000 people were evacuated after a volcanic eruption on Spain's Canary island of La Palma. The lava has destroyed about 100 houses. NTD's Eddie Aiken brings us more.
Rivers of lava tumbled slowly but relentlessly toward the sea on Monday, on the island of La Palma, part of Spain's Canary Islands off northwest Africa. Authorities evacuated around 5,000 people.
No, la casa no la he perdido, pero
No, I didn't lose the house, but the volcano is about 200 meters away, so they evacuated us last night, not because of the volcano, as they don't see it as the biggest threat to my house, but the threat is the gases, the dust.
About 500 tourists had to cut their holiday short.
It was not a sensation, it was horrible. We felt the earthquake. In the morning it started at about 6:30, and we had the eruptions the whole day, and then at 3 in the afternoon the lady from my house came and said, you have to pack everything, you have to leave.
No fatalities have been reported. The volcano erupted on Sunday afternoon when 2 fissures belched magma into the air and set the lava rivers in motion. A 4.2 magnitude quake was recorded before the eruption. Officials said the lava destroyed around 100 houses. Authorities told people in areas where volcanic ash was falling to stay indoors with their doors and windows closed. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez visited the affected area on Monday after cancelling his trip to New York to attend the UN General Assembly.
Más importante es garantizar la seguridad. La seguridad.
The most important thing right now is to ensure security, to guarantee the perimeter. We are still in the eruption phase. Please, let's be extremely cautious. Let's not approach. Let's stay away.
Spain's tourism minister said the island is safe to visit and the eruption was a wonderful show. The opposition criticised the comments. The island, with a population of 8,500, saw its last eruption in 1971. Scientists say the lava flows could last for months. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Jimmy Greaves, one of England's most prolific strikers, has died at the age of 81. Premier League club Tottenham Hotspur said in a statement that Greaves died at his home in the early hours of Sunday morning. Greaves was part of England's 1966 World Cup winning squad and scored 44 goals in 57 internationals. This made him the country's 4th highest scorer behind Wayne Rooney, Bobby Charlton and Gary Lineker. Greaves scored for Tottenham in the 1962 FA Cup final as they retained the trophy, then netted twice in the European Cup Winners' Cup final victory in 1963. He won another FA Cup with Spurs in 1967. His record of 357 goals in the English top flight remains unsurpassed 50 years after he retired as a professional in 1971. Greece opened a new migrant centre on the island of Samos to replace refugee camps. But the move was criticised by aid organisations who likened the facility to a prison. NTD's Gov't brings us this report.
A new migrant camp on the island of Samos opened Saturday, replacing an obsolete and once overcrowded facility.
We created a modern and safe structure for those who will stay here, for those who will work here, but also for the residents of Samos, far from the urban area.
The new facility cost about £35 million and will house up to 3,000 people. It was built after the European Commission and the Greek Ministry for Migration and Asylum agreed to construct reception centres on the eastern Aegean islands most affected by migration flows. Officials say the facility will provide better protection for migrants who faced violence and sexual assault in the camps.
It is a structure that will return the dignity that was lost by people seeking international protection, but also the necessary conditions of detention and restraint for illegal migrants who are to be deported and returned.
But refugee and aid organisations say the centres resemble prisons and will affect the mental health of refugees.
For us, it's a jail. It's a declaration of harmful policies that are preferred by EU leaders rather than the care, the induction and the ensure of asylum. These bonded fences that you see behind me, children will play under them, our patients will live there and they will be detained. That's the truth, that's the reality, and this is tolerated by Europe choices, and this is supported by EU leaders. This has to stop.
Greek government figures show the total number of asylum seekers in the country is 42,000, down from about 82,000 in 2020. Events in Afghanistan have fueled fears of a new refugee exodus towards Europe, but Greece has said it will not tolerate a repeat of 2015.
We remain ready for any additional pressure that might happen because of Afghanistan, but what Europe should do should have a common European response to the crisis. In no way it can leave the countries of first reception alone to face any big geopolitical challenge.
Greece also believes its regional rival Turkey may use the migrant issue to put pressure on the EU. Other holding centres will be built on the islands of Samos, Kos, Leros, Lesbos and Chios. Joy Dugid, NTD News.
Still to come, a student opened fire at a university in Russia. Several people were killed and more than 20 were injured. That and more after the break. A student opened fire and killed at least 6 people at a Russian university. Other students barricaded themselves in classrooms and jumped out of the window in order to escape the gunman. NTD's Malcolm Hudson has his report.
A student opened fire at a university in the West Russian city of Perm on Monday morning. At least 6 people were killed and dozens wounded. The gunman was originally reported as being killed, but law enforcement later said he has been detained and is being treated in hospital. This witness says she saw a young man walk in and start shooting. The Perm State University press service says the gunman turned a non-lethal firearm into a deadly weapon. Media footage from the scene shows students jumping from first-floor windows to escape. They built barricades from chairs to stop the shooter from entering their classrooms.
We spent over an hour in the lecture hall. There are around 60 people there. We closed the doors and barricaded it with chairs and tables.
Local media says the 18-year-old gunman posted a social media photo of himself with a rifle, helmet and ammunition before the killing. He indicated his actions had nothing to do with politics or religion, but were motivated by hatred. Perm is about 700 miles east of Moscow, with a population of 1 million. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
A look now at the results of Russia's parliamentary elections. The polls closed in Moscow on Sunday evening after 3 days of voting. Partial results today show Russia's ruling party retains its parliamentary majority, but has lost over a tenth of its support.
Supporters of Russia's ruling party celebrated winning the majority of the vote late Sunday, amid a sweeping crackdown of its critics. But partial results on Monday showed the United Russia Party, which supports President Putin, lost significant ground in the legislature. With the ballot count inching towards completion, the Central Election Commission said the party retained its majority, winning around half the vote. Its nearest rival, the Communist Party, which also backs the Kremlin on most key issues, came in at just over 20%. But the results so far indicate a weaker performance compared to its last election win in 2016. Years of faltering living standards as well as allegations of corruption from jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny have drained support for United Russia. Other Kremlin critics who have decried the elections as a sham say the party would have fared much worse in a fair contest. Prior to the election, Navalny's allies were banned from running after his movement was banned. Critical media and non-governmental organisations were also targeted.
The German government today said there are credible reports of massive irregularities in the Russian parliamentary elections. NTD's Kostemenes has more on this.
Independent Russian election observers and independent media said they recorded thousands of voting violations in last weekend's parliamentary elections. That included threats against candidates and observers and ballot stuffing. The German government confirmed some of those reports. A video filmed in St. Petersburg by an observer shows an opposition candidate surrounded by several policemen. Off camera, the observer is heard shouting, "They are strangling him." Elsewhere in St. Petersburg, a group of observers found a polling station shut. According to a poll worker, they were on a cleaning break. The observers waited with voters for about an hour without success.
I came to vote. I don't understand. It's a 5-minute procedure. The police won't let me in. I don't understand. Can I vote or not?
The election this year was extended to 3 days, and in Moscow and several regions, voters were able to cast their ballots online. Officials cited COVID-19 concerns, but election monitors said that the measures left room for manipulation. The Central Election Commission said it had recorded cases of ballot stuffing in 8 regions and that the results from those polling stations would be voided. At a commission briefing in Moscow on Sunday, an official showed CCTV footage from Pyatigorsk, a city in southern Russia, which apparently showed election workers using a mop to cover the camera. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, whose election monitoring missions are widely regarded as authoritative, did not send observers for the vote. It said Russia imposed excessive restrictions. This time, Russia's ruling party also campaigned in eastern Ukraine. On Saturday, hundreds of Ukrainians traveled by bus to Russia to cast their ballots. They are residents from the so-called breakaway republics of Donetsk and Luhansk, which are controlled by Moscow-backed separatists. Others cast their ballots directly in the disputed Donbas region of Ukraine. More than 600,000 people are eligible to vote after Russia handed them passports in 2019.
I hope that our vote will contribute to the integration of our republic with Russia. I will vote for the one I love, for Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
Ukraine has decried the vote as a step towards annexation. A top security official said Ukraine says it will impose sanctions against dozens of organizers and participants in the election. Cost Jimenez, NTD News.
On Sunday, locals and tourists had a chance to experience Paris in a new way. A car-free day removed much of the usually dense road traffic in the French capital. Pedestrians dominated a stretch of the Champs-Élysées. Other thoroughfares were also given over to walkers and cyclists. Buses, taxis and resident motorists making essential journeys were exempt from the ban. The car-free day is a part of the city's socialist mayor's push to curb vehicle use and air pollution. Her policies have irritated some motorists, particularly suburban residents, who complained of few transport alternatives. And in Spain, soaring electricity costs are leaving many struggling and going to extreme lengths to save energy. Here's NTD's Eddie Aiken with the story.
Maria Jesus Gallego lives with her 4 children in a working-class neighbourhood of Madrid. She has been going to great lengths to save energy, even taking a loan to buy low-energy home appliances. When the children aren't home, she turns the lights off and uses candles.
I save up by buying low-consumption appliances. And the kid says I am obsessed with the time-based pricing plan. When is the cheapest moment? When is the intermediate? Now we can't use the washing machine. That's how we do things. We don't go to the movies, we don't go to shopping malls, we can't eat out.
The family lives on just over £1,000 a month in benefits and pensions. Gallego's energy bills amount to over £100 every 2 months. Energy analysts say the price increases are due to tight natural gas supplies, higher costs for carbon emission permits and lower supplies of wind power. For some, access to electricity is a matter of life and death. Maria Nicolasa Sabariego uses a breathing machine at least 8 hours a day due to a respiratory condition.
Es que no gasto, es que yo la luz por la noche me alumbro con la tele.
At night, I just use the light of the TV and I go to bed with the light of my cell phone. That says it all. What will I do this winter? I don't know. I have no idea.
No tengo ni idea.
Economics professor Natalia Fabra says Spain gets much of its energy from renewable sources, which lowers the cost of the electricity supply.
But those lower costs do not translate into lower prices to the final consumer, because we pay for all electricity at the price of gas.
The high taxation on energy has led Spain's government to take action. It scrapped the 7% tax on power generation that was being passed on to consumers. It also cut a separate energy tariff and imposed a windfall tax on utilities. But for some, it may be too little, too late. Hedy Aitken, NTD News.
And finally, the annual plastic duck race returned to Canterbury on Sunday. Crowds lined the banks to watch the race. The event was held on the River Stour, where 4,000 yellow plastic ducks descended upon the clear river. A crowd pleaser for old and young alike. The event can be seen at various times of year in rivers across the UK. Onlookers can sponsor a duck, and the first duck to reach the finish wins its sponsor a cash prize. The Rotary Club organised the event to raise funds for local and international causes. That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.